And better than ever, all eyes are on the gridiron as teams are back on for another football season. As always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. With a new updated site and interface, even more odds, props, and contests, BetOnline continues to be the number one source for everything football. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Don't forget to use the promo code Bleav, that's BLEAV, to receive your bonus. From football, basketball, boxing, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. Bleav in the Arizona Cardinals. It is the Arizona Cardinals centric specific show. I am your co-host, Javon J. Love Adams, and as always with me is the one and only Ed Easy Smith. He played not only professional baseball, but he also played in the National Football League as well. As a tight end, he was a lot faster than, you know what I'm saying, he could turn on the Jets back in the day. And so how you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing pretty good. I'm trying to get my two-step back, working on this physical therapy after this back surgery, and I'm making them small strides. I might not be as quick as I used to be. I'm still light on them toes, though.
There ain't nothing wrong with that. It's with slow and steady wins the race. So in that old two-step to get you through anything that's going on. So we have a great show lined up for you today. We're going to be recapping Week 3, the matchup against the Cardinals and the Jaguars, and then we also want to look ahead to. Now it's starting to play in the division with the upcoming matchup against the Los Angeles Rams, who seem to have the number of the Arizona Cardinals. And so want to obviously get the thoughts of the one and only Ed Easy Smith as we go through this. So let's get to it. So some of the things I want to talk about is a win, the good that we saw, the bad, and then Kyler Murray. It seems like it looks like he's growing. I'm not sure. We'll get into that. The 3-0 start, does that wash away all of the sins of one Cliff Kingsbury? And then get into, of course, the Week 4 matchup against the Los Angeles Rams, as they'll be heading to Los Angeles for this game. So let's get to it. So 31-19. We talked about it not only here on Bleav in the Arizona Cardinals, but we talked about it on our show that we do locally here in the Phoenix area, Easy Sports Talk Show, NBC. KDUS 1060 AM Saturdays from 10 to 12. And so we talked about it, that this was one of those games where it's about how you win this game, and you better win this game. That was almost like a foregone conclusion, but it's about how you win this game. Are you going to play down to the level of competition, or are you going to elevate your game no matter who you play? 31-19 didn't start off too good to begin with. As we look at when we get to the end of the first half, it was 13-7 Jacksonville. And I want to break down the last play of the first half and get your thoughts on that. Again, some of the things with the defense kind of started to rear their ugly head a little bit in the second half, especially where the running up the middle seems to be something that they're going to have to contend with. But your thoughts on this? A win is a win, right? Easy?
Well, we talked about this just like you said, Jay. And, for me, the score 31-19 is very deceiving. It's a deceptive score because, as you mentioned, we went in at halftime down 13-7 after that long field goal attempt. They run it back on us, which is kind of unacceptable. I'm not sure whether it was game plan or whatever it was, but offensively, I just thought we came out flat. There wasn't anything that that really excited me about the offense. Obviously, Kyler makes the run in for the touchdown. You think we're going to just continue on that path. Then I think everything's just kind of got blah. And then the next, Jacksonville, they started that formula, which once somebody sees it, until you can stop it, everybody else is going to do it. What they do, Jay, they just ran the ball right down the center of our defense. They were just picking up yards. And then what's crazy for me is this was a game that like I said, that play at the end of the half with that touchdown, they go up 13-7. I'm scratching my head, and this is all inexperience of a head coach like an Urban Meyer You got the lead, you got momentum. Then you come out and try some funky, we obviously get the ball, we go down and score. Then you want to start with trick plays with your young quarterback. That was that pick six that they threw on that fake or the flea flick or whatever it was. That was the turning point of the game. They were still in that game and pretty much, I would dare say, had control of it. Obviously, we scored to get back, in it. But, I mean, if they stay on the path instead of all this, well, hey, they'll never be looking for this one. Let's go. Instead of staying with the run game, doing what they should have done, we might have been in trouble. As it turned, you and I talked about it at the start of this game. We thought the defense was going to set the tone. They didn't. But then when that pick six came, it was almost like the switch was flipped, and that's how we got control of that game. And from there, it was a runaway. But I was very unimpressed with our first half effort. It was almost like, you talk about it sometime where we're just going to throw our hat out there because we're the better team. We got more, better players on paper on our side. So we're just going to go out there and, roll the dice and get it done. And that was not the case. And dare I say that, this was another learning tool that Kingsbury should be trying to, I guess, get into the head of some of these guys. Maybe we're not as good as we think we are, and we got to go out there with intensity. We can't wait till second half or, play down to the level of our competition. We got a lot of growth to do, and I'm hoping within that locker room, just because you're 3-0 don't mean you're 3-0. There's a big difference in how some of these other teams are getting their wins, meaning their competition. And we talked about it last week, minus a missed field goal at the end of the game, we could have very easily been 1-1 going into this one. So I'm hoping that some lessons are being kind of learned within that locker room, coaches and players included, because now it's going to get tough. We got a 3-game stretch here coming up, starting off with on the road with the Rams. And you and I, we beat ourselves in the head last year with that 6-3 start. Everybody's poking us like, I don't know what y'all talking about, And then the curtain dropped. So I hope this isn't another episode of that. We got a long way to go with this football team, and I'm happy they're 3-0. I really am. But now, like I said, now some of those things that you talked about rearing their ugly head, we got to stop that, or it's going to be a bad stretch here.
So let's get to maybe some of the good before we get into some of to maybe expound on some of the bad there. The good, Byron Murphy, what did he have? 2 interceptions in the game. That he was the beneficiary of that when they ran that flea flicker. That, what was it? I think it was J.J. Watt. They got the pressure on the quarterback. They ended up kind of hitting the quarterback, and then, of course, the ball ends up Byron Murphy was in the right place at the right time. So definitely kudos to him. Who knows? I was looking on cardswire.com, and they were even speculating that maybe we'll have another player of the week for a 3rd week in a row. But if we look at the passing game, so 316 passing yards for Kyler Murray. I think at one point in time, he had 10 or 11 consecutive passes in a row, or completions in a row, I should say. So if we look at some of those things, and then so the wide receivers, Kirk Cameron. Kirk had another great game, or another good game, and so we love to be able to see that, because if anything, he's that guy that we want to get right. And it just seems over the past couple seasons that he couldn't get right because of injury that will come up, and AJ Green did a great job as well. Those are some of the good things for me. When we look at, if you had to point out some of the good things, what would they be for you? I'll say this real quick: the resiliency. They didn't lose the game. They came back, and I think that's something to point out in terms of the good. Mm-hmm. I was listening to the after game on 98.7, and they had mentioned that Cliff Kingsbury was asked about, is this the kind of game that you would have won last season? And he said, no, this last season, this is the kind of game that we would have lost. And that you appreciate that candor, and that maybe shows a little bit of resolve and grit, and maybe some of the players that you've added, they have maybe helped to push you in the right direction to avoid the mental lows that lead you to a loss. But your thoughts?
Well, I think the best good thing, Jay, is this was a victory. And we know there are no such thing as easy wins in the NFL. We critique because we're supposed to. We're the media. We look at there is a little bit said about style points, right? Especially when you're playing certain foes. And I thought this would be a game that our defense would set the tone early, and then we would end up with this type of score because we just thumped them and pounded them. And the reality, we had to actually come from behind, which is a good thing. We showed some resiliency, like you said, on the road. I do like how the offense is not all based on one person. You look at D-Hop's performance, very subpar for him. But as you mentioned, we're getting other people involved. You got Kirk out there making plays. AJ Green showed up like maybe a younger version of himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and this is something, we thought AJ would kind of be like a supplemental guy, but this gives you hope that on those days where you need him, maybe because of scheme and they're taking something else away from us, he has that game or two in him. So that was really kind of nice. Running game wise, we're still kind of half putting our foot in the water, man. It's almost like we want to do it, but we just don't quite get there. We're spreading it around a little bit. James Conner had 11 carries for 43 yards, the 2 touchdowns. Edmonds another 11 carries. And it's, we get a few from Kyle Murray. We're still not, in my opinion, putting our foot in the ground and just making sure that we keep that part of our game a constant. And that's going to come to bite us at some point if we don't emphasize our running game because, like I said, passing game is nice and you start throwing around everything, but they're going to take certain things away from you. They're going to almost dare you to run the ball sometimes. I don't know, and then you get into the 4-minute offenses and things like that where it's time to stall and take some time off the clock and things like that. We're not quite there yet. So we'll eventually hopefully get there. But overall, Kyler had a really good game, another head scratcher or two in terms of kind of throwing it up there. But, sometimes I'm like, what was he looking at or what was he doing, But all in all, and then defensively, like I said, I think the spark, because I was worried there in the first half. They had control of the line of scrimmage, meaning from their offensive stand, and they were protecting their young quarterback by using that running game, right? And then obviously we took advantage of a bonehead play to start their second half. And then once we got it rolling and then we kind of got ahead of them and forced them to throw the ball a little bit, what happened? We were unleashed on them. So, some good things in there, some bad things. But the biggest thing is we came home with another victory, 3-0. And I got to give you kudos because you had them at 3-0 at this point in the season. I had them at 2-1. But like I said, we're right on track. I think they're doing really well. And like I said, now the tough part starts.
So let me ask you this. With the bad, one of the things that I'm curious to get your thoughts on whether you think that the last 2 games in terms of that small sample size, is that an indication in terms of the lack of ability for the front 7 to be able to shore up the run game and those runs up the middle? Is that something that's just an aberration, or is it becoming a trend that we have to be concerned about? Because if you look at, and we'll get into the numbers a little bit more, but if you look at, for example, if you look at Los Angeles, if we look at the Rams, they're not a big run team. If you look at their stats, they I think I want to say that I have to pull it up to look exactly at it, but they're not running the ball extensively, like getting 100 yards a game. I think they 2 of the games. Yeah, if I pull it up here, and so I wonder if we're going to see they'll make that shift and adjustment to try to make sure that they're taking advantage of what is maybe a perceived weakness of the Arizona Cardinals. Is this something you think that can be fixed maybe over the course of the next, before mid-season, or is this going to be something we're going to have to deal with all season long?
Well, the crazy part, Jay, is we always focus on the offensive side of the ball, don't we, when it comes to most conversations about teams. And for me, we emphasize how crazy and how unprepared some of our offensive lines might be because of the lack of work done preseason, et cetera, et cetera. Same thing goes for the defensive side of the ball as well. They're actually still trying to work things out on the other side, figuring out what gaps are supposed to be in, the scheme of the defense, even tackling, bro. I mean, these dudes, there's 2 games in now, but this is their first 2 games. It's still kind of preseason-ish or early for them as well, figuring out where to get that hat, that contact. A lot of them are dealing with soreness that they haven't dealt with that you would normally deal with in the offseason, training camp, first preseason, second preseason game. Now you got them calluses on your hand and you're more prepared, right? Well, this is for our defense, and it's across the league. You can tell some of these defensive lines, it's in front 7s, I would call them, they're still trying to figure it out as well. Now, the problem is until you fix the problem, it's going to be a problem, right?
Hmm.
So
Right.
while everybody's looking at film and they're watching what Delvin Cook did to us one week, and then what Jacksonville did before the game, one of the things you and I talked about, we were like, they have no running game, so that's going to be shut down, and it's going to be should be high times for Trevor Lawrence. In fact, they ran the ball very effectively on us. So what's going to happen, Jay? The other teams looking at the film, they're like, hey, let's get some of that too. So until we figure out either by scheme or guys getting used to the offense and figuring where they're supposed to be, I guarantee you the Rams are not a huge running team, but they're looking at that film come today, meaning they're breaking it down, and they're looking and they're thinking, hey, one of the things we can do is we can gas these guys because it doesn't look like they're filling the gaps and doing the things they're supposed to do. So the Rams would be stupid to come out and think we're going to throw the ball 60 times if you're looking at what we've done so far. The good part is we can fix it. It's just a matter of, can we fix it against the Rams? And that's something we're going to see, because I do think they're going to emphasize trying to take advantage of some of the things they've seen over the last couple of weeks.
Now, I got to ask this. I'd be remiss if I didn't at least ask about what were your thoughts of going for that long field goal at the end of the first half? What were your thoughts on that?
That's one of those tricky ones, man, because you want the 3 points. You played flat. You're kind of thinking, hey, this hasn't been pretty, but let's see if we can get that 3 and put it on the board. That's kind of stretching your field goal kicker out a little bit. Now, on the flip side, you're like, well, what's the worst that could happen, right?
Right.
Okay?
Right.
And we all know what the worst could happen is, but you're thinking also, what's the probability of that? That we kick it and they catch it and they run it back 109 yards or 100, whatever many yards. Doesn't happen all the time. That's why it's such a spectacular play. Now, if we kick it and we make it, obviously that's a great thing. If we kick it, it goes wide left and goes out of the back of the end zone. It's like, well, at least we took a shot. When you kick it and they grab it and they run it 109 yards back,
yes,
sir. So we can all be the Monday morning quarterback and we say what we would or wouldn't have done. Right. I can't say one way or the other. I say you go for the points. What happened? If we tackle him on the 1 yard line, then we got away with one there. But like I said, as it turned out, I almost came off my couch watching that one, because it's almost like you're watching and you're like, well, somebody's gonna get him. Yeah, so wait a minute. Wait, and all of a sudden he just keeps going, and all of a sudden you see the big lineman, they got no chance. You got a kicker who he gave that little half-hearted, it's like you kind of feel bad for them dudes too, because they ain't got no reason or business to be out there trying to make a tackle. And then once he broke into the clear, it's like he could go, and it's like, oh my goodness. So it is what it is.
Yeah, and one of the things that is what I hope doesn't happen is because of, and this can be applied in life, and I'm not going to get all philosophical, but that we avoid risk because we're afraid of failure. But if you don't, you won't know unless you try. I mean, if you make some take some silly chance, then I can understand that. But if we're taking a risk, if we're trying to see and be aggressive, if that's in your DNA, then you try to manage it, and you're hoping that, again, based upon the probability of that happening, you're trying to just play the odds, and I don't find anything wrong with that.
Nah, so I like the go for it attitude.
All right, so now before we get into this game here, Kyler Murray. So is he showing growth, or is he still 11 straight completions at one point in time? I still see some of the these interceptions, man. Some of these interceptions are just, what are you doing there, my brother? But your thoughts on, are you seeing the growth, or is it still a work in progress? I mean, are you still kind of withholding that grade, or that to deliver what your thoughts are on where he stands so far in his third season?
I'm seeing the growth, but if I had to give him a grade right now, Jay, I would say incomplete, because I need to see more of a sample size against what we got coming up ahead of us.
Right.
This is, and I tell you, once again, I don't want to make it seem like I'm poo-pooing the 3-0 record. I'm looking at who we played, how we played, and some of the circumstances. I go back to the missed field goal against the Vikings, but 3-0 is 3-0. What I'm waiting for is now the level of competition and the intensity is going to jump. And then what does it look like when we're now facing some adversity? We haven't really seen, because I wouldn't even say it was a huge adversity over in Jacksonville. I at no point even when Jacksonville was up, that I feel like that threat, like, oh my God, if they were down to, if that was their performance, so they kind of were sputtering against a more high-powered team, I'd have been a lot more worried. So with that being said, I really like what I see with Murray for the majority of time. It's those times that 10, 15%. Because once again, I think we all saw it. He did the scramble and then the slide. It's like, you're not sliding in the third base. You're not trying to steal a base. It was like he scrambled and was nowhere near the sideline. And there's one thing, just throw the ball out of bounds. As a quarterback, you have every right to do that. He was 3 or 4, 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and he does the Olay slide. And I'm like, why'd you do that? So those are little things that I'm still looking to see. Let's correct some of those. The head-scratching interceptions sometime. Those are, like I said, we can work those out of the equation. But as far as, like I said, grade-wise, I would say incomplete, but I'm very happy with where he is right now. The true test is ahead of us, though.
All right, so let's go into what test number 1 will be. This week there to be 2 undefeated teams going at one another. As the Cardinals head to Los Angeles to go to SoFi Stadium to play the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams are coming in off of a victory against Tampa Bay yesterday, and this is one of those ones where it reminds me of, you could go over to across so many different sports, where here locally the Phoenix Suns for the longest time just didn't seem like they could beat the San Antonio Spurs, or for the longest time, of course now we look at with the Cardinals, with the Rams, with McVay being there. Your thoughts on how you think this game will play out? I think, as I'm turning it over to you, I think that it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to incorporate or how they're going to use Stafford when it comes to, because now they don't have to worry about Goff. And Goff, don't get me wrong, Goff torched them a couple times as well. But Stafford being a better quality of quarterback, I think they're probably going to be focusing more on the run game, even though they haven't, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, just because you see that opportunity, you see that weakness. Hey, we'd be crazy if we didn't give it a try just to see and say, okay, let's run it a couple times and see. And if we get some yards, to continue to do it until they stop it. But how do you see this game playing out?
Well, I love what you just said there too, Jay, because they're definitely going to explore and the Rams have not been a big running team. We know their problems in the backfield so far, losing their number 1 running back, and they've kind of got some guys back there who have some ability, but we're not sure how well they fit Sony Michel included in that group. But I guarantee you they're going to at least explore the option of what our run game could look like against this defense that seems like it's having some trouble right now. And then you know what that opens up? That opens up your play action, and that opens up your rollout game as well. And I will
say this real quick. I will say this, that, and I heard this mentioned earlier this morning, and I think that this is something the cornerback, the secondary has been doing a good job.
Yeah.
It's that front 7 that has been kind of been the weakness of the defense, and that's not something that we expected. But go ahead. Yeah.
Well, the one thing we have to be careful of in this game too. Obviously, we faced a very conservative. Look, think of the quarterbacks we faced so far. Tannehill. He's not somebody you're scared is going over the top on you. We got Cousins, who's the most. I mean, we talked about who would you rather have, Cousins or Tannehill. We actually went Tannehill at the time. They're both very conservative, not what you call dynamic. Then we get a rookie quarterback who is, like I say, he's still seeing the ghost running around out there. He's not quite there yet. Game is too fast for him. Stafford's seen it all, done it all. And if you I watched that game between Tampa Bay and the Rams last night or yesterday, and I'll be doggone, they've got all kinds of ability to go over the top of you. And that's what scares me the most. We haven't been threatened over the top to this point. A lot of stuff in front of us, and they can do all of it. They've got a good tight end with Higsby, I think his name is. If they get that running game together, which I guarantee they're going to give it a shot, that's going to open up a lot of options for the Rams. And I'm just worried that we haven't seen dudes running past us yet or over the top of us yet. Good point. Stafford and McVay, they are not afraid to try to take the cap off the top of your defense. And that's what gets me. You saw what happened with Deshaun Jackson yesterday. They got him involved, and then you got, they've got all kind of Cooper Kupp and all these different things out there. And we haven't seen this yet. That's the part that gets me. You hear that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this is one of those things, man, where I just think we're going to have to really keep them from exploiting us over the top with the back end of that defense.
Let me ask you this, though. So if we're looking at the offensive line, and there were a couple of there were a couple of there. You hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there were a couple of injuries that we had on the offensive line. So does that concern you? Because, their defensive line in Los Angeles is not one that to be trifled with, especially when we know about, the man that they got on one of the ends. So that concerns me a bit in terms of are we going to see that Kyler running, doing that scramble where he goes and steps out 2 or 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage instead of, as you mentioned earlier, throwing it out of bounds and trying to live to fight another play. That concerns me as well, because if we have those, I think Pugh and there were another couple of people that were injured. That concerns me. Is that a concern for you at all?
That's a huge concern, bro, because that's their strength is their defensive front. And once again, our lack of run game could be the death of us in this matchup here. If we can't run the ball and at least keep them honest, and we got Kyler back there throwing it 45 times, they get their ears pinned back and they start coming after us. And I do think their blueprint, because they have the personnel to do it, you send those ends up the field and get pressure up the middle and kind of create a little like spot that Kyler has to step up into, and obviously with his size, that's a little bit of a challenge for him sometimes. We might be forced to roll him out a bunch, who knows? But if they getting those defensive ends up the field and pressure, and you bring it up, our offensive line haven't been tested like this to this point. So, and then you factor in, we'll be on the road. Noise could become a factor. There's all kind of things that can happen. This defensive front, I guarantee you, is going to be up for the challenge. Our offensive line has a huge battle ahead of them, and they might be the biggest factor of the game, Jay, how that matchup goes. I think that'll probably, both, let's say, fronts, meaning offense versus defense on both sides of the ball, will decide this game for me. Our offensive line matched up against theirs, and then our defensive front handles their running game. This could, like I said, very easily come down to, like I said, those would be my biggest factors in this game.
Now, I want to cross sports here just to ask this question, and you can take it. You can keep it in National Football League as well. But I'm curious, because did you ever face a team when you were playing minor league baseball that had your team's number, let's say, or whatever it was? And so when you started to realize that, or maybe it got into your head a bit when you started to play them, okay, he's gonna think I'm looking fastball, but I know that he knows that I know it. So you try to outthink yourself, or if you're thinking, and I'm trying to relay that to Kingsbury and his lack of success against McVay. He thinks that I'm gonna do this, so I don't know. Maybe what I'll do is I'll keep doing what I'm doing because he thinks that I'm going to change it, but maybe I should change it because he thinks that I'm going to do the same thing. And you start to your mind starts to go crazy. Do you think that that's going to play some type of role in this as well?
Absolutely. And I love your demonstration here, because you know what you just did? You just demonstrated overthinking it. And that's what happens. Sometimes some teams and matchups just aren't good because of personnel. Maybe somebody just, knows your scheme even better than you do. It does, and you talk about even in other sports, like in baseball, sometimes there were just certain ballparks you go to, and it's just something about that the wind always seems to blow in from that direction. So anything I hit is not getting out this yard. Or then you start trying to think, well, I got to go either center to oppo, and you start making adjustments when you don't need to make adjustments. Just do what you were doing initially or your normal approach, and you'll figure it out. But in this instance, Kingsbury, I think, is definitely spooked a little bit by McVay. Okay. And then also there's a little competition out there. Everybody wants to be as good as, or when you match up against somebody who you're always referenced against, you want to go out there and show him, well, I'm just as good as him. And then, like I said, you start to overthink it. You get too sometimes over creative because, well, he's going to think I'm going to do this. Like you said, well, I'm going to do this. Or maybe I should do that. And then, like I said, then I'm telling you, bro, before you know it, you're like, how the hell did that happen? What was I thinking but like you said, it gets in the head sometimes.
All right, so let's get down to it. What do you think the outcome of this game will be? I've been very optimistic with the Cardinals to this point in the season because I just thought the filling out process this early part of the season. I think this is where the Cardinals will fall. I'm thinking if this was last season, I would say it would be 14 points or more that they will fall by. But I think they'll probably get down and then be able to come back. And I think they'll lose probably, I think it might be a 6-point loss. Maybe the Cardinals will fall by 6. But I think that the Rams, because of that mental block, if nothing else, then I think because Kyler's been a part of it for the last couple seasons, so he knows about not winning. And so sometimes maybe you try harder than you should. And so then you're not playing within yourself. All those things, or you're not making the right decisions because maybe in some of these team meetings with the coaching sessions where maybe Kingsbury is saying, Vance, we really need this. We know, it's just you could just kind of that vibe that's given off. So I think the Cardinals will fall. I think it'll be a close enough game, but I think they'll fall by 6. What do you think?
I'm right there with you. And this is one of those games where I don't want to get too like be a prisoner of the moment, but I'm watching what the Rams did yesterday against a Tampa Bay team. They got after Tom Brady for the most part. And what happened was Brady and them were trying to keep up and catch up the whole game. Right. And it was very odd because normally Brady and them, they're like right there ahead. If nothing else, walking step by step with you, usually ahead. And they did a pretty good job of keeping Tom Brady off his toes. And I know we're a totally different offense, but what happens, Jay, I think we sometimes rely on the magic of Kyler too much. Mm-hmm. And when Kyler is taken away, then what do you do? And I got a sneaky suspicion this is going to be one of those games where they're like going to be all over our offensive line and keeping Kyler under check. Mm-hmm. What's our second punch? Do we have a running game that we can go in there and just pound and ground? No. Do we, what do we have in terms of if we do happen to have to match the Rams like jab for jab? Yeah. I just think we come up short in this one. And the other thing is we sometimes make too many mistakes. As you can get away with mistakes when you're playing a Jaguars, a Tennessee team that was just overmatched that day. I don't think you win this game if Kyler throws 1 or 2 up and they come away with them, and they're going to be hawking. They're going to be out there trying to force him into doing those little turn and burns when he looks like he just turns ahead and just slings it.
Man.
Bruh, that's money for them, and they're going to force him. I guarantee you they're going to have a plan to try to corral him. I see this game, and with our offense, we can most of the time keep up with other teams. I do see them taking some shots over the top. This is one of those 30-21 games for me. Rams win.
And I will say this, though. One of the things I think that this could be the type of win, and this happens where if you're in the sales world, and you're out pounding the pavement, and you get these no's, and you get 1 yes, you get 2 yeses, you get 3 yeses, and your confidence goes up. So then you'll go to the biggest spender and ask and try to close that deal because your confidence is up and you're not afraid of the rejection. And if it comes, so what? Because you've had this recent success. So I think if they can get over this hump, and if they can beat the Rams, that will over these next 3 games anyway. Mm-hmm. When we look at the competition that they have, they might end up winning 2 of those 3. Yeah, and that because that confidence can go a long way. If we can do that to them, then we can. Then what can't we do? We can do it all. That will give them the confidence, and who knows what will happen if that does take.
Well,
place.
And the other thing, Jay, everybody is all it takes is a couple wins, and now all of a sudden, could the Cardinals be like one of the top 5 teams in the league? And it's like, slow your roll. Let's figure this thing out one game at a time. Right. This is a true measuring stick for them, though. How you go and play, and sometimes, Jay, you can take something from a defeat. Say you go out there and you battle, and there's nothing, like you say, there's no such thing as moral victories, but you can take something away from how you play, and that's once again what I'm going to be looking at in victory or defeat in this game. If you go over there and just totally dribble down your leg and put up a stinker, then it's back to the drawing board. If you go over there and put 4 quarters of fight together, you will make me a believer, and that's why these next few weeks are really important to me. I want the Cardinals to make me believe what I've been seeing so far, and also convince themselves a little bit too. So this is time is don't talk about it, be about it. So we're gonna find out what they have. But as like you said, both of us, we both have this one in the category of it's could be a loss. Let's see how they play, and if they come away with a victory here, I don't care how you get it. In this instance, if you got a street fight, you got to smack your own mama to get the victory. Do what you got to do. Mama, I'm sorry. Mama, I'm sorry.
And on that note, he is on behalf of the one and only Ed Easy Smith. I'm Javon J. Love Adams. We do this every week here. Bleav in the Arizona Cardinals. Tell a friend about Bleav in the Arizona Cardinals. BLEAV in the Arizona Cardinals. And we are presented by Bet Online. So as we always like to say around this time, you be easy out there.
Oh, you didn't give me a Yukon.
Yeah, Yukon.
I know my place. I'm waiting for the Ayukin first.
All right, so we'll go. We still going. So we always like to say around this time, Yukon.
Until next week, be easy out there.